Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, your host here at Crimes Untold, and today we're going to be talking about something that is not fun to talk about. True crime in itself is never fun to talk about. I mean, unless you're a sick individual. Never mind, I digress. So today we're going to be talking about a suicide of a young person that was affected due to bullying because of his orientation. Today we're going to be talking about the suicide of Tyrone Unsworth. Tyrone Unsworth was a 13-year-old boy who died in Brisbane, Australia. And he died after committing suicide after years of being bullied because he was a homosexual. His death definitely brought a lot of media attention in Australia when it came to suicide and LGBTI issues, and also brought up the notions of same-sex marriage and LGBTI-specific anti-bullying programs that would be established in schools post his suicide. So he died on the 22nd of November in 2016. So February of that year, Safe School Coalitions Australia basically designed a anti-LGBTI prejudice thing for schools, and this became like the center of many debates, and politically or socially, and it often was criticized in the media and in politics, and whoever basically was against the program was more about basically enforcing a rule against the people that it would affect. It oftentimes was criticized as being a part of the Australian Christian lobby, and whoever objected it basically was a homophobe. So on the 23rd of February of 2016, the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, announced that the program would ultimately be reviewed, and it would be heavily criticized by the LGBTI advocates and the opposition leader at the time, which is Bill Shorten. So on the 11th of March, the review happened, and it basically vindicated the program. It was still in effect. And the only reason why I'm talking about this is because they still don't have a lot of rights in different countries. Like I brought up with the Muhammad Ijaz case last year, a lot of countries don't have rights for the LGBTQIA plus community or LGBTI community. However, they label their community, which sounds really sad because labeling things now is a very PC thing to do. So back then, at this time in Australia, it was very hard for people to be able to be out when they wanted to without getting bullied. So let's get into the reason why I am talking about this case. So Tyrone Unsworth was attending the Aspley State High School in Brisbane. So his mom said that he had been consistently bullied for years due to his sexuality, and he was a very loving boy. He loved to dress nice. He was more on the feminine side, which is fine. He loved clothes. He loved fashion. And people, specifically boys, would make fun of him. They would call him a gay boy and faggot and fairy. And this was very consistent. Very consistent. He would be violently attacked on the 27th of October of 2016. He was hit in the jaw with a fence pole, and his aunt would be the one to report this happening. Now, apparently this occurred about an argument over a girl. It was Tyrone and another boy. And basically what happened is that someone spit on the girl and Tyrone was defending her. And the boy who was in the argument found the fence pole and ended up basically hitting Tyrone with it. So this all happened right outside of the Police Citizens Youth Club in Zilmere, which is in northern Brisbane. And some of the students from his school actually witnessed this attack, and they took him inside, and then an ambulance was called, and yeah, So Tyrone needed surgery in order to fix his injuries, and after this attack, he was afraid to return to school. His grandmother would state later that we tried to get him to return to school. In retrospect, the actual words she uses, we tried to force him back to school, which you should never force a child back to school or a young person back to school, especially if they feel that they are going to be continuously violently attacked. And he kept saying, no, I don't want to go back to school. So after this, Tyrone moved to his grandfather's property, which was in Upper Kedron, which is in northwest Brisbane, in order to basically nurse his injuries back to full health. And after he was discharged from the hospital, he was very different. And his aunt would reflect on this. She and his grandfather told Tyrone that after about a month of him not being at school, he would have to go back. And this thought was heavily weighing on him. It was something that he didn't want to do because he was afraid. A friend of his, the day before he died, said that he went on a fishing trip with her, and he spoke about the bullying that he faced. And this friend would end up talking about this on ABC. She said that Tyrone was a complete mess. He kept crying and saying that everybody wants him dead. She asked him what he meant, and he said that the kids at school kept telling him that he needed to kill himself, and that the other kids were calling him names like faggot and fairy, and the fact that he loved more feminine things and he wasn't as boyish as the other boys, and how he chose dresses to wear, and he always asked to use makeup, and the other kids thought he was outlandish and weird and gay, which is really sad to see. His friend urged him to tell someone at school about the bullying, and he replied with simply, they don't care, and the fact that he wasn't wanted and didn't belong at that school. So there is a lot of apparently conflicting reports when it comes to this bullying that took place. The school knows about the assault that happened on him on the 27th of October, but not about any other bullying because none of it was reported, which it doesn't always have to be reported for people to know. Of course, all the kids at school knew. All it takes is one person to say something. And of course, Tyrone was too frightened because he was afraid for his life to say something. If one of his friends said something, which I'm not placing blame on his friends. As somebody that grew up being bullied for being different, it doesn't have to be the person that's being bullied to stand up and say something. It could be their friends. It could be, when I say friends, it could be their peers. It could be their teachers. It could be somebody else. It doesn't have to be the person that's being affected by the bullying. And if someone said something, maybe he could have gotten help, but sometimes help isn't the answer. I know that sounds really bad, but it's true. As somebody that has been in a similar position, emotion-wise, I wasn't bullied for the same reasons. The reasons I was bullied was completely different, but I understand a similar mindset as to where he was prior to him committing suicide. And following his suicide, his principal, Jaquinta Miller, said that there was no allegations made when it came to the bullying, and the school, she said that the school would have intervened had there been a allegation. But Department of Education of Queensland stated or put out a statement saying that Tyrone was absent from school because of the assault against him, and that the school attempted to make some contact with the family, and that they said that the school had the best interests of the family at heart and for the community when handling this matter. Unfortunately, none of this would help him because he decided on the 22nd of November of 2016, which this would be the day that he would be at school. His grandfather told him he needed to go back to school, but he remained on his grandfather's farm. When his grandfather returned home from work at around 1 p.m., he didn't find Tyrone in the house. Unfortunately, he walked out back and he found Tyrone dead. His death has created a lot of attention in Australia and international attention when it comes to both cyberbullying against anybody in the LGBTQIA plus community. And as any death of anybody in any community, a death of anybody will cause media attention, will cause attention that needs to be taken when it comes to cases like this. There were vigils that were held for him. There was a rally in his honor that was held on the 4th of December of that year, and hundreds of people attended. It was held in Brisbane. People were asked to dress in bright colors. There were speakers that demanded the implementation of programs in schools where people could be safe, where people could go to others and talk to how they feel. And there was other LGBTI youths that shared stories of what they went through, shared their bullying stories, their poor mental health, and there was also a person that talked about a suicide, which is a good reflection when it comes to something like this happening. The following day, on December 5th, ABC would feature Tyrone and about his life, issues of homophobia, his bullying in Australia, and his suicide. And this was on the 7:30 program. The community of the LGBTI was in shock and overwhelmed with grief when it came to his suicide, and they demanded more. When it came to people that are bullied in this community, they demanded that something happen when it comes to suicides like this. I will say there was a lot of response when it came to the politicians in the area. A lot of people spoke out when it came to Tyrone's suicide. A lot of these people they can reflect on it, but they don't understand it. And not throwing anybody under the bus that's in a political status, but most of them, they do it to save face. And yes, they do ask for support of this community, but the only thing they can do is, rather than spurt their words out, is actually do good for these communities so nothing like this happens. And unfortunately, things like this continue to happen. I know a lot of people that are bullied due to their orientation. I grew up with a lot of people that were bullied due to their orientation. I have a lot of family members that were bullied due to their orientation. It's something that continues to happen. So that, my friends, is the death of Tyrone. It's something that is truly tragic. I have nothing but the best thoughts for his family, and I really hope that his death, not that he should just be remembered post-death, but he should be remembered as the beautiful person that he was prior to his suicide, without all the hate, without all the bullying that these people caused him. So I hope you guys learned something from this, and I'll see you guys in my next video.